This week I have an interview with the University of Surrey's very own astrophysics lecturer, Professor Jim Al-Khalili, OBE recipient and accomplished author and TV presenter. Thank you for finding time to do this.
Pleasure.
First of all, your new show, what's it called and what's it about?
It's called Light and Dark, and it's a two-part series on BBC 4. It's just gone out now, but it's still on iPlayer. And it's essentially about what we know and what we don't know about the universe, and how we've discovered what we can about the universe using light. Mm-hmm. And of course, so much of the universe is in the dark, which makes it all very exciting and mysterious.
So, having seen it myself as a physics student, I think one of the things that I find most interesting about it is that it sort of delves into some of the more nitty-gritty mathematics which nerds like us might find more interesting, as well as sort of maybe appealing to the general audience. Is that something you aimed for?
It is, and it's something that the BBC do on BBC 4. They're quite happy for me to write equations on a blackboard. They're quite happy for me to talk about complicated maths, because they know that audiences, they're not all physicists, they're not all mathematicians, but audiences say, we don't mind. We don't mind not understanding the maths that goes over our heads. Just make us feel clever. We want to feel that sense that there's some deep, profound ideas and mathematics behind some of these stories, rather than just fobbing us off with oversimplified explanations.
Yeah, I think that's something your friend Brian Cox, I think, has an issue with, maybe. Or
well, what Brian does is mostly for BBC Two, and for BBC Two, it's a much larger audience, it's a broader audience, and so you can't get stuck into the nitty-gritty. And very often, Brian Cox gets frustrated because he wants to put more science. He wants to put in a lot of physics in, and his producers and directors say, "Oh no, that's too difficult." And he says, "Look, come on, don't worry, don't be scared."
As such.
Exactly. So he's more constrained. In not being able to talk about the deeper stuff that I'm sort of able to do on 4.
Okay, yeah. What inspired you to choose that subject as a show? Is it something you're sort of involved with research with at all, or is it just...
Well, no, it's just one of those... It's a way of talking about the more exciting areas in physics research at the moment. So I had done various other series on 4, particular two-parters like this. So there's one called Everything and Nothing, and another one called Order and Disorder. So Everything and Nothing is talking about the universe, it's talking about the quantum world of atoms and the particles that make up atoms and the vacuum. Order and Disorder is talking about thermodynamics and heat and you know, again, profound ideas. This was the logical continuation about that, talking about light and talking about dark matter. And once you have the idea, you pitch it to the execs and commissioning editors at the BBC, and they say, good, go away and knock it into a 2-hour series. So together with the producer and director, we put this story together.
Also, one of the things you mentioned in the show was being astounded when you were at the University of Surrey and sitting in the lecture theatre and being inspired. Was that one of the things that maybe stuck in your mind when you thought about coming back to the university to lecture?
Yes, I guess so. In a way, my career as a physicist and the remaining at the University of Surrey wasn't really such an active choice. I stayed on after my degree to do my PhD at Surrey because one of my lecturers asked me to. And so it was a PhD that was handed to me. So I ended up doing both my undergraduate and postgraduate degree here. Once I qualified with my PhD in theoretical physics, the research that I was doing, the best place to do it was at Surrey. And so although I went away for a few years, I came back to Surrey for research purposes. And then you sort of, you get a foot in the door as a lecturer, and before you know it, it's decades later and you're still here.
Who would you say is the most influential scientist, maybe past or present, on your work? It could be someone prolific or...
I would name 2 people. One is my PhD supervisor, a man called Ron Johnson, who is still a professor here at Surrey. He's an emeritus professor. He's in his mid-70s now, but he still comes in every day and still does his research. And he was the one who really set me off on my career as a research physicist. And the other, I guess, is one of the greatest physicists who ever lived, Niels Bohr, who was the Danish quantum physicist, regarded as the father of quantum physics. And I think without him, then a lot of the research I would do just wouldn't be possible.
Sure, yeah. I know as well you sort of like to expose people to sort of famous Arabic scientists of the past who they maybe haven't heard of as much, so everyone knows sort of Einstein, Newton, but you sort of take a different approach and maybe introduce people that people haven't necessarily heard of.
Yeah, I mean, this is because if you ask people to name the greatest thinkers and scientists of all time, there may be one or two Greeks in there, Aristotle and Archimedes and so on, and then nothing until Copernicus, Galileo and Newton. So it's 1,000 years or more, or 2,000 years, when there seems to have been no science carried out. And it's during that period, when Europe was in the Dark Ages, the Islamic Empire, where the current Arab world is now, was flourishing. And so there's some great names there. Ibn al-Haytham was a great physicist.
Some of the lectures you gave, Al-Biruni.
Al-Biruni, yes, that's right, a Persian polymath who he measured the size of the Earth to within 1%. And we're talking 1,000 years ago. I mean, it's quite incredible. And it's quite sad that people haven't heard of these great scientists who should be, as you say, rightly regarded up there with Galileo and
Probably
Newton.
Just the way history writes itself.
Of course, yes, no one's fault. But then these are great stories that you want to tell the world once you find out about them.
What do you think is the most exciting area of current research going on, in your opinion?
Well, it depends if you mean current research in physics or current research in the whole of science.
I'll stick to physics.
Let's stick to physics, because there are things like in neuroscience and molecular biology, for instance, genetics, which are hugely exciting as well. In physics, yeah, I think things like the search for dark matter are...
that's something you cover quite strongly in your show. So anyone listening who wants a proper, full-on description better than I can give, watch the show. But I mean, could you give just maybe a brief overview of dark matter and dark energy?
Yes. Essentially, we know that all stars are clumped together in galaxies, billions and billions of stars, and the galaxies tend to be swirling around and rotating. You would imagine that because the gravity in the middle is dense, there's more stars there, there's lots of gravity there, but the stars on the outskirts of the galaxy should go round very slowly, because if they went round too fast, gravity's too weak to hold them. It's like a kid being thrown off a roundabout.
That's a good analogy.
Has to be something, but you look out into space and you see these stars in the outer edges of the galaxy, and they're going around very, very fast. So what's holding them in place? It's not the gravity of all the other stars. There must be something else invisible that has gravity, but we can't see it, and that's what we call dark matter.
And that it also must act on a very big scale, because this is not something we observe, say in the solar system between planets, because they very much behave as we'd expect with, forces of gravity, equations, we can work out their velocities.
That's right. At very short scales, yes, the gravity of the star, the planets and the star that holds the planets around it, like the sun, is enough to explain everything. But yes, you're right, we're talking about huge scales at the edges of galaxies where there's not much gravity due to anything that we can see, so there must be gravity due to something invisible.
And dark energy sort of works in kind of an opposite way. It almost acts as an anti-gravity.
Yes, dark energy is even more mysterious than dark matter, and we call it dark energy. You could call it anything. You could pink blancmange if you like.
Say it could just be a hole in Einstein's relativity theory.
It could be. I mean, and that would be quite nice actually, because you're looking for something. Well, maybe that something's not there, and maybe your theoretical prediction is the thing that needs tweaking. So that's why these sort of areas of research are so exciting, because anything could be the answer.
Sure.
But we know there are still questions to be answered.
More current issue. What's your opinion on India's space program and the fact they've managed to launch a rocket, I think, for £45 million?
Yes, I think that's hugely exciting, because when you listen to NASA talking about just the billions of dollars it costs to run their space program, and you see the developing countries able to do some very exciting stuff on a shoestring budget, relatively speaking.
I mean, I think football players get more for
exactly, and yet to have a space mission like that, countries like India, China, who are starting to develop their own space program, I think it's incredibly exciting.
What about maybe from a moral perspective? Because there's going to be a lot of people out there who say, India's got a very high poverty rate, they should be spending the money on, curing that. But I think
no, I think it's with all these arguments. Whatever you spend money, even in the rich West, we have poverty here. Any money you spend on research, people could say, why are we putting money into the Large Hadron Collider to look for the Higgs boson when we could be pouring that money into the NHS? There are always those moral, ethical arguments that you could use the money elsewhere. But the fact is, in civilized, enlightened societies, there are all sorts of pressures and tugs on finances. I think if India has a very powerful and successful space program, that you don't know what benefits that would lead to in the long run. Hopefully that would have benefits that would reflect on wider society, including tackling maybe poverty.
Sure, yeah. I mean, NASA as well has sort of come under the cosh sort of from the government, saying that they need to make budget cuts, when I think in actual fact they sort of make up 1% of the overall funding, sort of, and then you compare it to US defence.
You compare to the defence industry, so, and you realise how tiny that money, that pot is.
It's all relative, pardon the pun.
Very good. As a physicist, I'd expect that sort of pun.
I'm hoping everyone would get that. But, so from the point of view of, say, NASA's budget cuts, do you think things like landing on Mars are going to be possibly less?
Yeah, I think there's a big debate going on about manned missions to the planets compared with the sort of missions that we have now, Curiosity rover, which is out there studying the surface of Mars, but without any human involvement there. Everything's being done remotely. I think there will be manned programs to Mars and other planets in the coming decades. I think that it's inevitable. Mankind will always want to be out there doing the exploring. But the cost of these missions has to come down dramatically because they are cripplingly expensive at the moment.
So maybe it will be India first then.
Who knows? Exactly.
Okay, just to finish off, I'm going to do my take on something called a PIVO questionnaire. Have you ever done one of these before?
I'm not sure.
Now, it's essentially just sort of fun, quick-fire questions, which are designed to sort of explore the person that we're...
And I'm supposed to come up with an answer top of my head.
If you've ever seen Inside the Actors Studio... Or
yes.
Something that they sort of do on that. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
What is your favourite word?
My favourite word, serendipity.
Good choice. Least favourite word?
Least favourite word, can't.
What sound or noise do you love?
A cat purring.
Do you have a cat?
Yes.
You're a cat person?
I wouldn't say I'm, a crazy Catwoman type person.
No,
but...
I wouldn't say you give that impression.
But yes, there's something cosy and reassuring.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, fingers on blackboard.
Good.
Nails on blackboard, yeah.
What profession other than your own would you most like to attempt? Or attempted?
What I would have most liked to... I'm a professional footballer.
Lead supporter, aren't you?
Yes.
Arsenal.
That's all right.
Bit of history there.
That's all right. I always say, maybe another one of these questions, if I were to build a time machine, travel back in time, where would I travel back to? I would always say 1972 FA Cup final.
Fortunately, that was long enough before my time.
It doesn't say there's no wounds there. Okay.
Your favourite film and/or TV show?
Favourite film
other than your own.
Okay. Well. Favourite film, I would say, is a film called Brazil. By Terry Gilliam. It's a very sort of dark, Orwellian 1984 type film. Okay. Absolutely loved it, loved the music. Favourite TV show? Breaking Bad.
Good, yeah.
Good choice? Yes.
Us as well.
Gotta be.
Favourite song or musical artist?
Okay, favourite song or musical artist? Let me
just stick with the musical artist.
Okay. Well, because I did Desert Island Discs a few years ago for Radio 4, and I had to choose my tracks, and I think the one I ended up with was a track off Santana, Moonflower, 1970s rock music. That's
good time of music.
Yep.
Finally, I know you, like myself, are quite a strong atheist. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
If heaven does exist, what would you like God to say to you when you're at the pearly gates?
I'd like him to say, I can understand why you made the mistake about thinking I didn't exist, and I forgive you. I hope you have a nice time here anyway.
With Niels Bohr.
With Niels Bohr, of course, yes.
So, yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen it, please check out Light and Dark on iPlayer. I really recommend it. It's one of the best documentaries I've seen. Any future projects lined up, sort of, in the near future at all?
Well, the current project that I'm busting a gut on at the moment is finishing a book that I'm writing, and it's a book on an area of physics called quantum biology.
Okay.
So it's not even physics; it's a crossover between physics, chemistry, and biology, and it's hugely exciting. It's also an area of research that I'm breaking into. It's where quantum mechanics plays a role inside living cells, and not many people know about it. So
okay, well, when the time comes, let me know.
I will do. We can
I'll be
plug the
here again.
book. Absolutely.
But, in the meantime, check out the Surrey Scholar, and thank you for your time.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.